Hello guys and welcome back to the Stacey West YouTube channel. I am Ben and today I'm joined by Ollie from Salopcast. How are you doing, mate? Are you keeping well?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent stuff. Right, and yeah, we've got Ollie on because obviously this week Lincoln City signed Tom Bayliss on a 2-year deal, with him having played at Shrewsbury most recently. So Tom's had a pretty decent career. He's been at Coventry, went to Preston for £2 million earlier on in his career. So we thought we'd get Ollie on to talk about, really ask the question. Who is Tom Bayliss, Ollie? And where's he been? How key has he been in the Shrewsbury side that managed to stave off the drop this year?
Yeah, I'd say his 2 years at Shrewsbury Town overall are mixed. In the first season, he was signed by Steve Cottrell. He had a fairly successful season. So yeah, he went to Preston, didn't play a lot of games, came to Shrewsbury to kind of kickstart his career per se. He did pretty well, started 31 games. He scored 6 goals and did 4 assists, so 10 goal contributions out of 30 games is not bad at all. Steve Cottrell teams work really hard, and he's like a 6 foot tall number 10, and he did that shift as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's fair to say his second season was not as good as the first, unfortunately.
Okay, so is that as a result of Shrewsbury performances overall, and the fact that the team, I think it's fair to say, would maybe struggled a bit in League One this season? And was he kind of? I mean, Gary did a piece on the site about it and said, that he's obviously managed to get 5 goal contributions this season. I think he got 3 goals and 2 assists this season.
2 assists, yeah.
Yeah. So with him kind of being in a side that struggled, do you think that might have been to his detriment, or was it just kind of a bit of a dip in form in general?
Yeah, if I was his agent, I would definitely be saying that Shrewsbury and Matt Taylor were an effing awful football team. Mm-hmm. Dysfunctional, no ambition, a terrible football team that looked uncoached, and the players looked unhappy. So that's on one side. You could say, he played in the Shrewsbury Town team that scored the lowest league goals in League One by a stretch. And yeah, you could argue that he was in a team that wasn't performing. But then on the other side, from the general fan perspective, they would say that he didn't look interested. He was lazy. He didn't really try very hard. And his mindset didn't seem the same as he was in that first season. Quite a few players seemed quite unhappy when Steve Cottrell left. So if Lincoln can get him motivated playing in a decent side, then you maybe see the best of Tom Bayliss. But I wouldn't say he's one of those players that is going to kind of drive the team forward. He's going to be a player that is going to be he's going to do well in a good environment.
Okay. So, I mean, you say about being in a good environment. It does sound at the moment like Lincoln's team spirit and everything around that. It seems to be pretty good in the camp. So, what kind of player is Tom? Where does he tend to play in the 11? I mean, I've seen a lot of talk of him essentially being a number 10 that would just sit behind the lads up the front. Is that kind of, obviously with a relatively low amount of goals and contributions this season, some people would look at that and see a bit of a disconnect between, well, if he's an attacking midfielder, he should be getting a few more goals than he has done.
Yeah.
But is that his preferred position, would you say? And realistically, how versatile is he as a player as well?
Yeah, so he's if I was to put his best position, he'd definitely be a number 10. Mm-hmm. Playing in like a 4-2-3-1 or a 3-4-1-2 type situation, playing that kind of floating role. Shrewsbury Town are a team that have struggled the last few years, even under Steve Cottrell, when we spent loads of money. We spent millions and millions of pounds that we didn't have. When we had a team that was very expensive from a Shrewsbury Town perspective. We finished 12th. And that's when he got those 10 goal contributions. He was still defending because Shrewsbury Town didn't really keep the ball. So he did have to work hard. When we were playing under Steve Cottrell, sometimes we played like maybe a defence midfielder, and he was played like an 8 as a 8.5 type of position. It's, and for me, I find it really, I think it's naive, so naive when people go and look at someone's Wikipedia account. It's like, oh, he's a striker, he hasn't scored any goals, but well, yeah, maybe because the team was rubbish and he never had any chances. It's, for me, it's like, I don't know, like Dan Udoh might be leaving Shrewsbury Town this season, and some people say, oh, he's only scored like, I don't know, just over 10 goals last season. Yeah, but he converted virtually every chance he had. He never had opportunities to score, and obviously, so I think if obviously Lincoln's ended the season fantastically well. You had a fantastic second half of the season. If Tom Bayliss is playing in a team with high possession, and you can get the ball into him into a dangerous area, he's a very silky player. He's one of those players that kind of floats and glides along the pitch. And when he's on his day, he can be really, really effective. He can be really good at linking up play, doing quick 1-2s around the box. He's the type of player that can also score goals as well. Like, he will miss chances. Anyone who plays in League One is going to miss chances. Otherwise, you'd be playing the Championship. But I think you've got a good player on your hands, as long as kind of like the team around him plays to his strengths, get him on the ball in a dangerous area. And while he can do a shift, I wouldn't want to see him. If I was an Ipswich fan, I wouldn't want to see him wasting all of his energy tracking back a lot. You want him kind of fresh to ready to be in the attacking final third. So I think he's a good signing for Lincoln, as long as you play to his strengths. And I don't know if you play with a number 10, but if you don't, maybe he's going to play with like an attacking central midfielder in a midfield 3. But for me, his best position is definitely a 10.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple of instances this season where we've needed that. The attacking midfielder, sort of that, essentially that 10 position. We've had that role has kind of been filled by Danny Mandroiu and Ted Bishop this season for the most part. And obviously the talk is at the moment that it looks like Mandroiu and Bishop will both be leaving the club. They'll be, the contracts will expire next week, and they won't be returning to the club. So it almost sounds a little bit like this is a like-for-like replacement with Tom coming in. Obviously, he's scored several times against Lincoln City. I think he scored for Coventry, and then I think he scored for Shrewsbury. The article here we've got December 2022 when you won at home against us. So yeah, it sounds like he's going to be a decent, almost slot in replacement for them. I mean, do you see that in the right side he would have the potential to play higher? I mean, obviously, there's the talk of his earlier in his career going to Preston for 2 million and having that tag on him. Do you think that maybe with the right setup and the right squad around him, he would be able to play higher if the opportunity came up?
I'd never say never, because we all know players' trajectories can go off quite fast later on in a career. He's only 25. He's 25 until next April. So he's not old. I would be surprised. I'd be surprised if he was to maybe if you got promoted, maybe he could do a job for you in the Championship. But I wouldn't expect per se a club to come and try and sign him next summer, and unless he does absolutely amazing. But yeah, for me, as you guys have seen, you've been in League One for a while. You've seen League One standards raise. Maybe a few years ago he would have been maybe Championship, but I wouldn't per se he's really Championship standard. Obviously, I'm not really sure what happened with him at Preston. I don't think he maybe necessarily didn't settle so well. I'm not really too sure what happened there, but he didn't play. And often players normally find their level, don't they? I always find it quite funny when players leave teams and he's so good for us, and then he can't get a League Two team or something. You have to question how good the player really is. So no, I'd say Tom is a very, very solid League One player. But you never know. A couple of good seasons for you guys, and maybe either with you guys going up. I'm sure that's your ambition this summer. Though League, obviously, as you know, League One is going to be very tough. I would be surprised if you got into Championship, but I wouldn't put it past him if he did really kick on for Lincoln. Because as I said, Shrewsbury Town have been very, very poor going forward, haven't scored many goals. So maybe he'll do better in a better side.
So yeah, I mean, it does sound like he's probably a cog in the machine that wasn't quite spinning with everything going on at Shrewsbury. So, but yeah, I think that more or less covers it. The only other thing I did want to ask was about is he able to play elsewhere in the team if he's needed to? I mean, obviously, you say you're a number 10, you're kind of expected to fill in anywhere across the middle of the park, really, aren't you?
Occasionally we played, when you play like 3-4-3 Chelsea style, kind of formation under Conte, like maybe he could fit in that kind of role, but I wouldn't want to see him out on the wing. He's definitely not a winger. So for me, in that middle channel, you could play number 10, number 8, not a number 6. But yeah, you can kind of do some roles. And if you're playing like 2 10s with a striker, then you'll fit nicely on the kind of the side in that half space. But yeah, for me, I'd see him as a midfielder or number 10, central midfielder or number 10.
Excellent stuff. Well, look, thank you for joining me, Ollie. It's been a pleasure.
No problem,
We'll definitely have you back on at some point to preview the games. Obviously, the fixtures are out this week, so yeah, we'll put something together then. But always a pleasure. And until next time, we'll see you on the Stacey West YouTube channel. Get yourself subscribed and up the Imps.